Welcome to Good News York, sponsored by Ads on the Go, getadsonthego.com. Mike Brindisi flying solo today. Matt is out collecting goose droppings. He's got some weird study going on. I'm not going to question it. But I'm here with a very special guest, Mr. Michael Gilbert. Michael Gilbert, you are here on Good News York for a couple of reasons. Obviously, the main reason is the Inner Harbor 5K, which we're promoting. You're looking for volunteers
and runners.
And runners. So we're going to get into that. But also, you have a very, very interesting background that tickles my fancy because I'm a very big advocate for mental health. I've had my own personal struggles and have known family and friends that have. So I love your background. You worked in human services for 30 years, including foster care, group home, hospital settings. In addition, you've worked as a school psychologist in the Syracuse City School District, as well as an adjunct professor at local colleges. And in 2000, you founded the It's About Childhood and Family Incorporated, which is a non-for-profit. To me, that is more impressive than any title there could be, because I don't know if I believe in a God or what, but anyone who's out there helping people in the mental health realm is just like doing God's work. It's so important. So I admire that so much. Welcome to the show.
Thank
you. Yeah. So let's talk about a little bit about that, the background. How did you start getting involved in mental health and kind of going that direction?
Well, yeah. In undergrad, I had no idea what I wanted to do.
Sure.
As most kids don't. I was there for the college experience. Then once you graduate, you figure out a job. Like, how am I going to make a living?
Right.
So one of my first jobs was working down in the Binghamton area. I was working in a group home with kids who had been, abused or neglected. And, I was, spending, a shift, an 8-hour shift, sometimes the evening shift, sometimes the morning shift, didn't matter. So I really got kind of thrown into that world that I really had no, understanding of until that point. Like, you read stuff in your classwork, but my undergraduate degree didn't really prepare me for that.
The real work is always doing it.
Right.
Yeah.
And certainly, just coming out of college, I was working a couple jobs. So I was working there, and then I was working in an alcohol drug crisis center, which was another eye-opening experience. But so that kind of got me into the field, especially working with younger kids, and trying to understand their story, how did they get to the point, because here they were being put in a group home, and often had very challenging behaviors, but, trying to understand what led to that. Like,
Yes.
It's not that there's something wrong with them, it's what happened. And I know you probably heard that in a lot of the trauma work that people talk about, but, at that point in my life, I didn't have that understanding. I just knew that, there must have been something going on that led these kids to be in a situation where they were, now living in a group home away from family. And so that really kind of, got me really interested in learning more and understanding and seeing, what I could bring to their situation that might bring, some hope. And so from there, I worked at the Hillside Children's Center in their foster care program. I worked at the old Benjamin Rust Center, which was a psychiatric center when they opened up their new children's unit. And so, I was doing quite a lot of different things. And that's when I moved back to Syracuse. But then realizing I really had to go get more education, in terms of, wanting to do more. So that's when I went back to school finally. This was back in the 90s. Went back and got my master's, ended up staying to get my doctorate, which I hadn't necessarily planned on doing. But then, coming back to Syracuse, having that also that experience and learning more, and then being able to apply that to what I'd already experienced. So when I went back to college, not to ramble on,
No,
because I had
this is great.
5-6 years of experience under my belt, the graduate studies wasn't really that difficult for me because I'd already experienced that, and I'm in classes with kids who are just coming from undergraduate.
Right.
I've never really experienced, what the real world has,
100%.
to deal with. And so it really gave me a better perspective to apply now what I'm learning in classes to what I've already experienced. And so when I, finished that and came back to Syracuse, I felt, um, I was just in a much better place to really make a difference, I felt. And so, that's when I started working in the Syracuse City School District. Been over there, I've been there almost 30 years now, so I got a couple more before I think about retirement from that job, although I'll probably stay connected in some way. And then in 2000, that's when I founded the small nonprofit. It's about child and family, and that was really a way for me to try to fill some gaps in what was going. Back then, there was really, especially in some of the rural counties, there was such a lack of services, of providers, of any kind of programming, especially for kids. Um, so, it's been a wonderful experience. I mean, the people that I've met and worked with and have come to know and become friends with has just been a privilege.
That's amazing. You said a couple things I want to talk. First of all, I love that you said one of the first things that caught your attention, within working in that field with the children is where did it start? There's nothing wrong with them because there is such a, especially back then,
Yeah.
such a stigma with anxiety, depression, ADHD, whatever mental illness you're affected by that, oh, there's something wrong with me. It's very easy to feel that way. And especially back then, like you said, with the lack of resources. But it's, I had a pretty severe childhood, traumatic experience as a child. And when I first started going to therapy, I didn't want to go because my parents would say, I think you need to go and talk about it. And I would say, but I'm over that. That's not what's wrong. I want to know why I feel like I'm sick all the time. Fast forward, come to find out, of course it all stems from that. So I think it's very important that you said that. And I really, really appreciate that. And also, I love that you went back to school because I too went back to school later in life. And I was able to apply things that I had already learned in the field with these with kids that were undergrad that I was learning from them as well. But you bring so much to the table, you don't realize it till you're there. That like, wow, the real school is out in the real world, and so it goes hand in hand. So I really really respect that. So it's all about child and family. Let's talk about that. What exactly do you do with what does the organization stand for? What does it do?
Yeah. Well, it certainly has gone through a number of reincarnations, especially after COVID. So a lot of things that we do include like educational kind of components. So we do workshops. We used to do one or two conferences a year, which we haven't done in a few years after COVID. But we're looking at doing something in 2026, and maybe partnering with some local groups to do that. So we used to bring in experts from all over the country to talk about trauma and mental health and wellness and social emotional learning, that kind of stuff. And so really trying to provide that aspect of understanding, as you're talking about, in terms of it's not something that I did. I'm not responsible for this. It's just something that is part of my story in my life, and we all have a story.
Mm-hmm.
We all have gone through our difficult times, and so you're not alone. So trying to bring that educational component to not only the professionals, but we would also bring parents to those conferences as well to provide them with some education. We do. We're really my philosophy is really about the holistic approach. So not everybody's going to respond well to just a talk therapy type format. So allowing them a variety of modalities. So part of it might be talk therapy, but part of it might be maybe try yoga or some expressive arts. One of the things that we know about trauma is that sometimes it kind of lives within us.
Mm-hmm.
We've even seen that within our DNA, that sometimes it gets encoded there, and then is expressed when the situations are right. And so sometimes just talking about it is not enough. Sometimes you have to get it out physically as well.
That's right.
So it could be being more physically active, going for walks. It could be, like I said, yoga, doing mindfulness. Um, we encourage a lot of expressive arts, like through music,
Oh yeah.
dance, poetry, painting, whatever might be. Um, our thought is that we want people to explore those things because they may have a passion for something they never knew. Like
Right.
a lot of kids and families that I talk to, especially that are dealing with extreme poverty or had a history of trauma, they don't really think about dreams and goals. I mean, they're just trying to get through the day,
Just trying to survive.
just trying to survive.
100%.
So, trying to open them up to the idea that, there are things out there that they might have a passion for that they don't even know. They might have a talent that they don't even recognize, and try to at least expose them to a variety of things and give them um, some control over what they want to do.
Absolutely.
Instead of telling them you have to do this, X, Y, or Z, here are some things you might try. What feels right for you,
Yeah.
and maybe you try a half dozen things before you find out what really works for you. I know, like Safe Space,
Yep.
they do some great work, and I love their model because it's like peer to peer. It's like, it's not necessarily professionals telling you what you need to do. It's people who have lived it and can speak from their own experience and have those conversations. It's just person to person. But I love those kind of opportunities for people, because the other difficult thing is, especially if depending on what insurance you have, you
Oh,
may not have opportunities. Like, and I work in the school system, and we bring in therapists from outside, but that's your choice. Like, if you want to see this therapist, that's the only choice you have.
right.
Where you have people who have more means who can, I don't want to say shop around, but they can try out a few different places to make sure it's a good fit.
That's right.
Because one of the most important things we know about therapy is you got to have a good fit with the therapist.
You're nailing it, man, and as you should. You're obviously a professional in the business, but I have preached that for so long. It's like going to the gym. Back in the 80s and 90s, first of all, there was more of a stigma and there weren't as many resources. So going to a therapist was kind of embarrassing for some people. You fast forward, the stigma starts kind of going away, but now there's insurances involved. And I've had personal experiences and friends and family who now are afraid to go, but they're willing to go, but they have to jump through the hoops of insurance companies and this and that. And so the next level of that is, okay, now you get into a therapist. You're about half a session in, maybe you're a full session in, and you're going, I'm not vibing here. But people aren't going to go back and go through that whole process again. And the reason I'm laying all that out is because you're right. Not every therapist is for everybody. There's different styles. And if you're not getting if you're not getting what you need out of the therapy, it's a waste of time for you and your therapist. But people had a hard enough time getting into it. Now it's like, how do I change? So, but it's so important. You have to kind of go with who you're comfortable with. And I also love that you talked about the talk therapy thing, which, talk therapy is great, but I've always agreed with you in that it's good in addition with
Right.
whatever that with is. Maybe it's medication for some people. Maybe it's physical activity, finding a passion. I just think that talk therapy is great in its own way, in its own right, but adding another layer to that is so important. And the physical part is true. I've tried craniosacral therapy. I've had some success with that. You hear about EMDR now. There's all sorts of different things out there. Right. What is the biggest shift that you've seen as a mental health professional in the mental health field?
Well, I think part of it is that, that trauma-informed piece, which in some instances now has become like a buzzword, and people talk about trauma-informed, but they're not really.
Right.
They're not really. I mean, they're trauma aware, but they're really not trauma-informed. I mean, that's something that I challenge our school district a lot with. Like, we're trauma aware, but we haven't gotten to the place where we're changing policies and stuff that really would make us trauma informed.
That's right.
It's a really different level. But I think, certainly we've seen growth in that area. We've seen, I think, growth in those other modalities, as adjuncts to counseling, like talk therapy, which I think has been great. And I think just people more willing to talk about it, like,
Sure.
just being, vulnerable with each other, and even with the talk therapy. I mean, I, you know, even talking to, like some people who have their faith, you might talk to a clergy member or somebody. You may have, um, somebody in your life, that, you can confide in. So even the talking part doesn't always have to be with a trained professional.
That's right.
It's a matter of, um, learning to be able to kind of communicate your feelings and your needs, and being comfortable doing that, and uh, being open to feedback and stuff like that. So just, you know, I think those are big shifts. And then also I think, like, along with the whole awareness is just, I think understanding that we all, like I said, we all have a story. We're all, there's a great quote. I don't know if I remember it exactly, but you can, everybody's going through something that you may not know anything about. So, just be kind, be compassionate, be
100%.
understanding,
Everyone's struggling with something.
right. And they may be having a bad day for whatever reason, but unless you really know their full story, just a little bit of grace is sometimes
Well,
needed.
you're 100% right. You see these videos now on social media of people freaking out in traffic and smashing windshields. And when you've been in therapy, or if you're a trained professional like yourself, you instantly know this has nothing to do with the person that cut them off.
Right.
There's something very much there's something else going on in their lives that are pushing them to that thing. Like, one of the greatest things I learned in therapy is, like, imagine you're a barrel, right? And if you wake up with rainwater up to here, up to the brim, which the rainwater being your stress, your trauma, your emotions, it's going to take just a little bit of rain for it to spill over. So the idea is to keep that barrel near empty, right? We all wish it was empty, but it's kind of impossible, right? So keep it near empty, and you do that through mindfulness, meditation, talk therapy, medication, whatever it is. So I love what you do. I also I've dabbled in this holistic approach that you talked about, because it says you've advocated for non-medication and non-labeling approaches. And I remember when I first started going to therapy, the therapist I went to at the time did not have the ability to prescribe. So I went to my primary, and this is not I'm not disparaging primary doctors. I love my primary doctor, and everybody should have one. But I also think that there's a certain portion that should not be doling out mental health medication, because I remember the primary doctor I had at the time, I was explaining what I was going through, and without even making eye contact, just looking on his computer, was like, do you want Lexapro? Do you want Prozac? And I remember sitting there thinking, I don't know what I want. And there's no, and medication does work, but I think there needs to be a mental health professional that's catering it, because I recently started working with Dr. Shiavi, who I've had on the show, and she is a specialist like yourself, and she takes a holistic approach. And so there are tests now. I did a DNA test that was able to tell me by name what medications will work for me, what medications I might feel some effects from, and ones to stay away from by name. And there was also a test I took that showed my gene mutations and how I have a gene mutation with serotonin. And I mean, medicine is coming and science is coming, it's come so far. Do you want to talk about that a little bit, about the medication and some of the holistic approaches that you believe in practice?
Yeah. So especially when I got started, I mean, part of my, I was probably a lot more aggressive in terms of, not asserting, we shouldn't be drugging like really young kids. Like,
Yes.
so that was a big focus of mine. And my wife would always have to remind me about, get more with honey than vinegar, so
Nice.
you might have to take a little, but it took me some years to really kind of, incorporate that. But you're right. I mean, the thing with medication is, especially without knowing that stuff that you don't necessarily know what's going to work or what's not going to work. It's like
Crapshoot.
just, it's like an experiment of one. Like,
Right.
let's try this and see what. And And so, for me early on, especially working with parents, is like, often it was like it's not something they necessarily wanted to do. They weren't going to get medication for their kids. Um, so our approach was, let's try everything we can, and if you decide at some point, like, this is not, like, this is a parent's choice,
Sure.
with their doctor about whether or not they're going to try medication. It's like, I'm just providing, some thoughts, around that. And one of it was like, if you get to a point where you think that's something you want to try, then, don't feel, guilty. Don't feel,
Right. Defeated. It's not
right,
a loss.
right. And just know that, your goal can still be eventually maybe not to have to use the medication,
That's right.
or you use the lowest dose possible, or sometimes they do drug holidays for their kids,
Yeah.
summer and stuff. So it was more about, empowering them to, really be in charge of that decision, but also know that, once a decision is not final. Like, you could
Yeah, it's not like once you're on it forever. It doesn't have to be that way.
No.
Right. And it did feel that way for me. I think, I guess I used to treat medication kind of like back surgery back in the day, which was like, if you go to a doctor and the first thing they want to do is you're having back problem, they want to do back surgery. That's a red flag. Like, let's try a million other approaches first, and let's use the medication, or let's use the back surgery last. Do you kind of feel it's that way in mental health? Like,
Yeah.
let's try, because there's, especially now with all these different forms of therapy, maybe let's try those first and worry about medication last.
Well, especially with the young kids, because again, the brain's still developing.
Yeah.
It's like, what, mid-20s or so until your brain is mostly fully developed. Like, so we're
Yeah.
introducing things into young kids that can be problematic,
Sure.
if we're not careful. So, that's why I always, I'm cautious with that. And also it can, it can, it doesn't really address necessarily what the root of it is. So again, a lot of my background is dealing with kids who are dealing with a lot of significant trauma and stuff. So, um, they may be acting in a way that, if they had some medication, might, like, help
Sure.
settle them out. But part of the reason that they're there is because of their history. So it's not addressing some of the root causes.
It's just numbing it. Yeah.
Just kind of masking it. So making sure that we still, still explore some of those potential, reasons why they are, where they are, and try to, promote things that are healing. Like you mentioned, mindfulness can be very, healing. I mean, one of the things we know, and that's come a long way too. I mean, some of the things that get researched is what makes money, right? So
Of course.
if you're not going to necessarily make a lot of money by selling a mindfulness program, the universities may not be spending, millions of dollars doing the research, but there has been some research done that shows that it can, alleviate things for some people. But one of the things that I like about it, because I work with young kids and we teach them about, mindfulness and, breath work and that kind of stuff in the schools, and we've even been having them do some yoga, with a person that we've been bringing in, and the kids love it. I mean, they enjoy that, but getting them to, like, take a breath, just to pause, just to
100%.
before they, like, react to something, like, it's something you have to, like, do consistently, for it to become something that becomes then something you can rely on. So, a lot of the kids, that I work with, they just react to things, right? So, I often talk about, like, if you grew up in this area and you know what it's like when you go to the first sledding opportunity when it snowed. Sometimes you're going down that hill and it's kind of slow because you haven't created those grooves in the snow yet.
I love that.
Once you've gone down it, a number of times, then that pathway is like, it's really fast.
Absolutely.
And so a lot of our kids, that's their, like, neural pathways, like when they respond to things, like it's just an automatic, fight, flight, or
Yep.
freeze kind of thing. Um, or and so to create those new neural pathways takes a lot of time, like that.
It's a lot of work.
Sledding. And so, practicing the mindfulness, practicing, calming strategies, to develop new neural pathways, so that then when they're confronted with something, instead of just automatically going down that path of, I'm going to fight you, you're going to take that pathway of, I'm just going to take a breath. I'm going to take a moment to kind of think about what's going on, and I'm going to choose a different way to respond.
You're so right. You're so right. It's been, people think that sometimes you go to therapy and then like, there's some magic bullet they're going to hit you with, and they don't realize that, a lot of the work is outside of the office and kind of retraining your brain. And so it's funny, like when I first started with my struggles, if I had heard someone say, well, you should try yoga, you should try going for a walk, in my mind, I would laugh it off because I would think, listen, no walk and yoga is not going to help the hell that I'm feeling. Not realizing that it's piece by piece, that those things work in addition to everything else we talked about, but you got to slowly chip away at it and create those new neural pathways. And all of that is so important. I do want to talk about the 5K, but one question I wanted to ask you as a professional, there's a lot of crossover with like, anxiety, depression, ADHD, borderline personality disorder. I mean, if you go online, it's very overwhelming because a lot of the symptoms are the same symptoms, and it can be hell trying to figure out what's going on. But one thing we're hearing a lot about is ADHD. When I was growing up, I clearly had it. But it was, again, this is the 80s and 90s. And back then it was very much of, you're disrupting the class, leave. Or you need to put him on Ritalin. And, the stigma is, oh, squirrel, he can't pay attention. But what people don't realize is there is so much more struggle and so much more to ADHD than just lack of focus. Lack of focus is a part of it, for sure. Do you want to talk about that a little bit on some of the misconceptions and what you know about that?
Well, yeah, I certainly agree with, growing up in the 70s and 80s, it was a much different thing.
Yeah.
And, we've seen a lot. It's an interesting thing. I mean, we could probably do a whole show just on that, but
Oh God, I could go forever.
yeah. But I think you're right. I see. So from my vantage point, a lot of it is like, we just expect kids to fit our, expectations. Like, so in terms of a classroom setting, like we just expect kids, they're all
Yep.
just gonna sit, and there's chairs for 7 hours and pay attention, and they're 7 years old, but that's not how it works. And we know that some kids, it's just very difficult for them to do that. So we should be making adjustments for them, not expecting them to
Adjust
to some unrealistic expectations. So part of it for me is like, the label's the label. Like, part of the reason, when I talk to parents, especially in kids, about the labels is I don't want them just to identify themselves as that.
right.
I want them to identify themselves with all the amazing qualities that they have, and not say, well, I can't help it, I'm ADHD, or use that as a way to define themselves. So yeah, we have those behaviors that are associated with ADHD, but what else makes you who you are? Like, what are those qualities that make you? And so some of the things that may, be problematic at school may be, in other parts of their life may be a strength.
I love that.
So, again, helping them to develop some strategies so that, there are situations where we do need them to maybe adhere a little bit to what the expectations are. I'm not saying the kids should just
Right.
running around the building like,
No.
but, they can certainly be walking around the classroom.
Yep.
If they're not disrupting, they can certainly have some fidgets
Yep.
there. They can have some breaks. A lot of schools and classrooms now are using calm corners, which is something where,
Yeah.
But again, it's something you have to really teach the kids how to use appropriately. It's not just
Yeah.
go back there and play. It's like, if you really need a break, it's a place you can go back and maybe color or
Yeah.
do something that's going to be kind of, calming for you. But what was your question again?
Talking about ADHD, you forgot his question. No,
So-
so the question is just like you're right on it. Just like some of the misconceptions about ADHD and how it's more than just lack of focus.
Yeah, and also, I mean, probably 10 years ago, they started talking more about it with girls too. Because
Yes.
girls who maybe had difficulty with the focus, they would just kind of getting overlooked because, the boys tend to be more,
Yeah.
outwardly
Yes.
displaying some of those things. So, I think there's been it's it's definitely evolved. I think there's definitely better awareness, and also I think again giving kids the opportunities to have breaks in school and
100%.
have because it's a struggle. Like it's not like people who have those difficulties. It's not like they want to have those
No.
difficulties. It's not like they're not wanting to
Right. And
you
I
know
think I think that's what it was. It was like you said in the beginning. Oh, this is the rules of the classroom. If you can't follow it, then you can't be part of it, or there's something wrong with you. When the fact is, our brains are not allowing us to do like we need to move, we need to fidget, we need to take a break. It would be like different quarterbacks have um, different what's the word I'm looking for, processes in the in between games, right? So like one quarterback might like to watch film and then go out in the field and practice these drills, or no one quarterback has the same process. You can't tell them, well, that's not how we do it. You got to do. Everyone processes information different. Everyone has different processes, and it's like that with ADHD. There's more to it than just focus. It's feeling overwhelmed, like you can't start a project, or getting hyper focused on something too much, or the big one is being very reactionary, being very rejection sensitivity. There's just a lot to it. So I'm so glad that you're able to shed the light on that. And
yeah.
and
And certainly one of the things that especially young kids need is they need a recess. Right. Like some
of
of our
course,
schools have completely taken that out of the school day
I
because
know.
it's just and I think that's part of the thing too. Like I think we're seeing probably more of some of the behaviors than we might have seen years ago, because I think we're seeing more of them because now we're putting kids in situations where they're really not able to do what we want them to do. Like we're
Sure.
putting so much focus on test scores, um, on things that really don't have a lot of meaning. School 7 hours for young kids can be like it can be difficult,
Eternity. Yeah.
and we've made it even more challenging because it's just so scripted, and they're just they're trying to fit so much in, because it's all about how well they do on some of these tests, and not that tests don't have a place, but we overemphasize them and we start way too early with them. And if we looked at other countries that don't do what and have better outcomes, you would think we'd make some adjustments. But
Listen, you are speaking my language. I took a sociology class where we studied the workforce. I've talked about this many times on the show. We studied the workforce in overseas countries where they're given 4 to 6 week vacations, 4 day work weeks, complete health benefits. And these workers are getting interviewed and they're being asked, like, well, don't you find that you're not making as much money? And I mean, you're allowing all this vacation time. And the bottom line is, if you take care of your workers, if they have enough money to afford to live, if they have enough vacation and weekend time to spend with their families, it all comes back full circle into society where everybody is more rested, healthy, happy, and more willing to work harder. And it's kind of that same mentality in school, with what you're saying, and having a recess,
well, even I mean, kids are born with a natural love of learning, curiosity, wonder. And it seems like our goal in education now is just to squash that. It's like,
Right.
why aren't we
Celebrating
nurturing
it.
that,
Yeah.
celebrating that? Like, giving kids more opportunities to explore things that they might have a passion for instead of just making them not like school because it's just not
Yeah.
interesting. Like, so we really have to think, what is education for? Like, what's the purpose?
Right.
I mean, that's a question I think really we have to be asking ourselves, especially after COVID, and like what is the ultimate purpose? Because it's certainly not for kids just to memorize facts, and
Exactly.
for some it may be to learn a skill, through even bringing back some of the BOCES programs in high school and learning you know a career through that. Not every kid certainly has to go to college, but really giving kids more of an opportunity to explore what it's like collaborate with each other and just, I think, be more creative and allow teachers to be more creative. 'Cause, again, teachers, sometimes get a bad rap, but boy, I have so much respect for what they do every
Same,
day.
same.
But giving them some more autonomy and creativity to work with their peers and
And the resources, giving them the
the
resources.
resources to do it, right? Instead of just telling them, okay, X, Y, and Z,
Yeah.
almost scripted out for them.
Yeah.
Like they deserve a much.
I always loved and respected teachers. But like you, I only worked in the school before I took this job. I worked in the Ithaca City School District for about a year and a half, and anything I thought I knew, I didn't. I didn't realize what they're up against, the resources they don't have sometimes, the support that the lack of support in some areas. I mean, they're also some of the things you were talking about are celebrated. There are they do have leeway to be more creative and teach the way they want to teach. So there were some good things too, but I really got to see what teachers go through and how important they are. And we need to take care of our teachers for sure. But listen, you would have been out of here 10 or 15 minutes ago. Unfortunately, I found out you were involved in mental health, and it's something I'm passionate about, so I apologize. Let's talk about the Inner Harbor 5K. That's why you're really here. Michael Gilbert, you are would I say you're the executive director of the Inner Harbor 5K?
So the Inner Harbor 5K is something that it's about child and family, has put on for 17 years. So it's part of the nonprofit that was one of our fundraisers, but also one of our kind of community events. So, so I've certainly been the race director of that with all my other hats. But I'm excited this year because we're actually making a transition where we're partnering with the Syracuse Run Club. We'll have to get them on at some point, but they're about a year old now, and it was funny because last year, putting on a race, I learned is not as easy as maybe I thought it was when I first started because ran in races, but I'd never certainly organized one. So, I mean, luckily I had some people who had done it and helped me, but it's a lot of work, especially the couple weeks leading up to it. So last summer I was down at the Inner Harbor, kind of checking out the course and making sure there was no holes that people might fall into as they're running around. And this group of runners came, through the harbor. It was like probably 150 runners. It's like, what is going on? I've never seen anything like this in the city. And so as they're running by, I'm asking people like, what's going on? And somebody, finally yelled out that it was part of the Syracuse Run Club and get a hold of Eli. So it's like, okay. So
Good old Eli.
go ahead, right. So I checked them out and saw what they were doing. And so, I started to collaborate a little bit with them. We often have a lot of shirts left over, and
Uh-huh.
so and I asked them if they want some of those and to help promote the race, but also kind of clean out my garage of stuff I don't need. So they thought they wanted to start their own race, and so I let them kind of explore that, and I think they learned what I learned early on, that it takes a lot of work, and it's also can be expensive depending on where in the city you want to run. So, so I just approached them and I said, if you really want your own race, I go, what do you think about the Inner Harbor 5K? Because, I'm going to be probably looking to transition. I want it to keep going, but I don't want to be the one who's doing it. And so they were interested in that. So we've been, meeting frequently in the last few months to help them, learn about all the different components to the race, and with the idea that eventually they'll kind of take it over fully. I mean, I'll still be involved. I'm still going to help them.
Sure.
Our nonprofit is still going to do a lot with the Brexy run because that's, very important to us. But they're going to bring a lot new energy to it, new life. It's a younger crew, so they're much more savvy with the social media stuff, and their flyers and graphics than I would ever hope to be. So it's a good partnership. So they're bringing a lot to the event, and we're already seeing that. We're already, our registrations are already beyond what we've had
Great.
this year. So it's a good partnership.
Yeah, and this is exciting because it's the Syracuse Inner Harbor 5K. It's on October 5th, Sunday, October 5th, 2025. But there's a lot going on. You've got the 2K race run for Brexy, which starts at 9 a.m. The 5K race is at 9:30. 10:30 are awards. You've got a kids activity zone with games, giveaways. Otto's going to be there, ice cream, and then post race. I love this. Talking about mental health awareness and that is you got post race yoga, massage, a DJ, food truck, raffles. This is awesome. What? Let's talk a little bit about the 2K Peace Run for Brexy. What is that about? That kind of kicks the whole event off.
Yeah. So we've always had a kids run with our race.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's been a mile. Sometimes it's, a number of years ago we went to a 2K just to be a little different and also to fit the course because it's hard to get an exact route down there.
Yeah.
And then 3 years ago, there was a student, Brexy in Syracuse City, who was, I think it was in January, she was walking to the corner store to get milk for the family, and there was a drive-by shooting.
Oh.
It had nothing to do with her, and she was killed. I, got to know Mom a little bit from some work I was doing in the community over on the west side, and she was working there. I talked to her a few months after, and I said, I'd like to, I have an idea about the 2K run, because I knew she wanted. I mean, Brexit had such a spark to her. Like she was like just lit up the room. I think wherever she went, talking to people that knew her well, I've always said that about her. And so, I approached Mom and I said, I'd like to name the race after her and, kind of promote it and, we'll give some stuff back to the community. We donate a lot of like books and stuff to various places and do some scholarships for kids to go to different camps. And so we try to do those in Brexy's honor. So Mom was very appreciative and she wanted to do it. So this will be the third year that it's been the 2K Peace Run for Brexy. So
That's
the
awesome.
idea is, to come out and have some fun, to remember her in a positive way. To, it's also about just the senseless gun violence that they'll deal with. And
Yeah.
we don't, we're not going to spend time at that event like
No.
really going negative on it. We really want it to be a positive event, but we also want that awareness that not only for Brexy but for other. We've lost a lot of kids in the city to
It's awful.
So
I mean, that's why this show exists, to counter that. You turn on the news locally, nationally, and it's just doom and gloom. And it feels more than ever with the 24-hour news cycle. So an event like this is amazing. Also, the proceeds from your event's going to support the local nonprofits you were talking about, as well as athletic departments at 5 Syracuse City School District high schools. So, man, you're doing it all.
That was the Syracuse Run Club. That was one of the things that they wanted to focus on giving back to those athletic clubs. So yeah, it's gonna be fun. We may have some special guests that I can't divulge yet, but
I mean, Otto is pretty special.
Pretty special. And during the years, we've had Crunchman and
Nice.
Scooch. I mean,
Yep.
it's all depending on.
I love it.
I don't want to say that they're the same person, but
Well,
we have had races where all three of them have been there.
that's amazing.
It's been amazing because I was beginning to wonder if it was just we had one person.
You dispelled the conspiracy theory that it was one person.
Right.
They were all in the same place.
They're all the same.
All right. Well, before we hit the plugs, you guys are still looking for volunteers for the Inner Harbor 5K, correct? And also racers as well?
Yes, definitely. Runners, walkers. If you want to volunteer, we'll definitely put you to work. We can never have too many volunteers. And the nice thing again with the Syracuse Run Club is they really want to do more like the after race kind of vibe.
Yeah.
That's with the DJs and the food trucks, and so it's probably going to get even bigger in years to come. But even if you want to come down and just,
I was going to say, even if you don't want to race,
just
come down for the after party.
Yeah, come down and check it out, and you still get a massage if you want.
I might just show up for that. Is that okay? Michael Gilbert, you are an amazing man. Michael Gilbert, it's all about Childhood and Family Incorporated is his business. Also one of the organizers for the Inner Harbor 5K, which is Sunday, October 5th, 2025. give us the plugs. Where can people go to check out info, sign up to volunteer, to register to race? Give us all the plugs.
Right. So, Run Sign Up is the site that you can register either to volunteer or to race. But those links are also on our Facebook page and our Harbor 5K Facebook page, also the Syracuse Run Club Facebook page, and we also have Instagram pages for the Inner Harbor and It's About Child and Family and the Syracuse Run. My social media.
It's okay. Listen, you do so much. You're allowed to not be great at one thing. Yeah, you
So
can't. You're only one man.
If you go to those platforms and you look for Inner Harbor 5K or Syracuse Run Club or It's About Child and Family, you're definitely going to find something.
Right.
I promise you that.
Okay. Let's go with it. Don't bother trying to get a hold of him on social media. He doesn't know how. But he knows how to take care of people, and he knows how to throw one heck of a race. And we're so happy you came on. Michael Gilbert, you're the man. The Syracuse Inner Harbor 5K, Sunday, October 5th, 2025, Syracuse, New York, Facebook.com, Inner Harbor 5K. And thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. It's been great.
This is awesome. Please come back.
I will.
All right. And with that, it is Mike Brindisi saying goodbye to you on this Tuesday on Good News York, sponsored by Ads on the Go. Get adsonthego.com. We will be back tomorrow, and we'll see you then.